I'd like to thank the VUB for giving us the opportunity to say a bit about what we do. We'd like to call ourselves a social enterprise. But to make this story a bit more personal, I'd like to start by saying a couple of things about how I got to be the operational director of Close the Gap. The reason that I'm doing this in English, I understand some of you do not speak Dutch, which I totally understand because it's a very difficult language. So if you don't mind, I'll do my presentation in English. I also understand from talking to some people over the lunch break that this morning, during the survey, one of the results was that not many enterprises were sort of started from the VUB. And I want to prove you guys wrong, because I think Close the Gap is a beautiful example of a social enterprise. My personal story, I worked in ICT in the Netherlands, in Europe for about 15 years, and I really wanted to change what I was doing with my life. ICT is very much something that is untouchable, you know, now it's even sort of in the cloud. I didn't see a lot of results of what I was doing, and I was working very, very hard. So the beautiful opportunity I got given was when I worked for the logistical company, TNT, now PostNL, the equivalent of bpost, but then in the Netherlands. Beautiful international organization, logistical focus, moving packages around the world. They had, I think, what was the first public-private partnership with the United Nations World Food Programme. I had the opportunity as one of the employees to actually be seconded in Malawi in East Africa. And that really gave a complete turn to my career. Being a part of a development corporation, especially in the World Food Programme, and sort of looking from the inside into how the United Nations worked was fantastic. After 4 months, unfortunately, I was sent back to my original job, which was at the time a really boring ICT project manager within the ICT division of TNT Post. So I didn't really want to go back, but I had to. The project manager that came after me, unfortunately, his mother was very, very ill, and he had to be sent back to the Netherlands. And so they called me, and they said, Inge, do you want to maybe finish his term? And I was already packed and ready to go to Schiphol. So that gave me an opportunity to actually extend the time that I spent in Malawi. So 4 months turned into 4 years. I started a different social enterprise for TNT, which really had to do with extending the partnership also for the World Food Programme. Looking into alternative sources of energy, but also compensating their carbon footprint. Because obviously both organizations have a very large carbon footprint because of what they do around the world. They fly packages, they fly food, they transport a lot. I had no idea what I was talking about. I had a background in ICT. Didn't know anything about biofuel, CO2, anything. So I always say to all the students that I meet, always say yes to any opportunity that you're given. After Malawi, I moved to Canada a couple of years and worked for a small consulting firm that really was doing a lot of things in green energy, waste to energy, and waste management. Then, after a couple of years again, I felt homesick. I wanted to go back to the Netherlands. By then, I was away from my family for about 7 or 8 years, and I really wanted to go back. Then I met Close the Gap. And the profile that they had for this particular position was unique. It was written for me. ICT, for one. 2, experience in development corporation, plus green energy, waste management, that sort of thing. So I looked at the profile, I'm like, it's impossible. This is really a profile for me. 3 years ago, moved to Brussels from Canada, and I've been living here ever since. I want to show you a little movie that in a couple of minutes actually shows what we're doing. After that, I want to tell a bit more in detail about what we do and what makes us very unique, the business model that we have, and hopefully for all the people that really, really enjoy the presentation, I hope you guys will follow us on social media. As you can see, our Facebook is there, and our Twitter. Thank you so much. Maybe we can start the movie.
what Close the Gap is doing is actually bringing ICT innovative ideas that will help children to learn in the modern world of information technology.
Collecting used computers and mobile devices for redeployment in developing countries. That is what Close the Gap does. Thought leaders and CEOs of partners embrace this mission.
We want to give opportunities to groups who don't have access to IT.
Well, IT improves by providing solutions to help people living in another way, improving their overall life.
Internet is key to be able to integrate the world culture that is now developing.
But it also develops skills so that they can be much more employable.
More and more organizations are becoming a partner of Close the Gap. They donate used computers, laptops and mobile devices, or contribute in kind, like accounting services, ICT support and consultancy. They are also convinced that the reuse of computers in developing countries offers many opportunities.
What I really like about Close the Gap is that it reinvents itself every time, because they question themselves, what is today the best way to work, and how do we partner with whom is the best to have the biggest impact.
To help bring ICT to remote areas, Close the Gap delivers DigiTrucks. These refurbished containers, designed as ICT classroom, teach digital literacy to students, community members and entrepreneurs. Arrow Electronics sponsored the first DigiTruck.
We can't build all those DigiTrucks ourselves, but we can set the example for other companies that this is not hard to do, it's inspiring, it's rewarding for your employees as well as for your company.
Recycling is also extremely important. An economy is sustainable when it's circular.
It speaks for itself that when you bring computers to developing countries, that you should make sure that the end of life, there's also a good treatment of that.
Well, it's very important that the material is recycled, reused, and we don't need to take new material out of mines.
Sustainable growth, a sustainable environment, and last but not least, sustainable communities all over the world. ICT enables this. And this is why a social enterprise like Close the Gap is active. How can you contribute to changing a child's future?
When I grow up, I want to be a heart surgeon. I want to be a nurse. I want to be a librarian.
I want to be a journalist.
I want to be a doctor. When I grow up, I want to be a pilot.
Thank you. As you can see, what we're doing really changes the outlook a child has in their lives. Before that DigiTruck showed up in this particular orphanage in the northern part of Tanzania, the kids only had a future of being a farmer. You know, they didn't even know what the next village looked like, or the big city like Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. They had no idea. So for them, it's really giving them a hope for a different future. As you can see, they're very ambitious. They want to become heart surgeons and doctors and nurses and a pilot. But what we see is access to ICT in these developing countries can be very limiting because of the high cost of ICT equipment. So that's why, as a social enterprise, and we've been doing this for about 13 years, so we're not new at this, we try to engage big European organizations, have them donate to us their ICT equipment. We refurbish it, but the issue is indeed the high cost. So because we work with refurbished material, we can keep that cost pretty low. Can I have the next slide, please? Talking about ICT, the clicker didn't work, so in case you're wondering. The thing is, it requires local expertise. Sending computers to a developing country is one thing, but making sure that there's a sustainable network there for people that can actually support it. Who do you call when your laptop doesn't work? The ICT department of the VUB. They don't have that luxury. So we work with local partners that provide us with that. Can I have the next slide, please? Local qualified IT teachers. Even the teachers in the schools have never seen a computer. So how important is it to make sure that the teacher also knows what's going on and how to use the computer? in a learning environment. Can I have the next slide, please? But then becomes the next issue, and we call this our license to operate in Africa. The issue is the electronic waste, and not just from the computers that we send to Africa, but from all the mobile telephones that they also use. I was always amazed when I was working in Malawi, and I went to schools that were far, far away from the capital city. And these farmers had nothing, you know, they didn't even have shoes on their feet, but they had a mobile phone. I was amazed by that. So the technology that is in Africa right now, you know, has an accelerating effect, far more than it has had here in Europe. The issue is, Africa lacks infrastructure to deal with that kind of electronic waste, because the volumes that we produce, you know, are not the same that the volumes on a country level that they produce. The issue is there's a lot of hazardous material in there, but also material that we can reuse. As you heard Peter Sabbe, the CEO of VUB, it's the e-waste authority here in Belgium. Indeed, also valuable material. Lack of waste management infrastructure. So what do we do? If I can get the next slide with the... just some facts and figures before I go into our business model. As I said, 2003, over 500,000 assets we have collected in that time, and over 140,000 computers have been deployed to several projects around the world. Our main focus is Africa, but we also have projects in the rest of the world. And WeAreVUB, as I said, that's a spin-off of Close the Gap. We call it a license to operate. That really sets up with these local partners collection facilities and processing facilities for these electronic waste materials. And they're operational in 7 countries. So this is our circular model. And in this model, and I think that makes us quite unique, we have partnerships with private organizations that work with us. And it really creates a win-win. So not just the transport, the distribution, the end-of-life collection. Everything is part of what we do. So we take that initiative and we also take that responsibility on board. And Recupel has actually helped us fund WeAreVUB as well. I think that's an amazing story. Because as Europe, we produce a lot of electronic waste. And I'm not saying a lot of things are now being dumped in Africa, but Africa is going to get their own issue in terms of electronic waste. It's a hazard, it's a health hazard, it's an environmental hazard. I don't know if you know the images of Ghana, you know, people that are just, you know, burning off plastics of these copper wires and burning all the rest of the plastic that has no value. And next to it, you know, you have a stream, a river running, and 500 meters to the left, there's like a big market that sells fruit and vegetables. It cannot be a good thing. So infrastructure is key. So this was my story, ICT, Accelerator for Development. Again, if you would like to follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. The good thing is, at this moment in time, you saw the DigiTruck in the little movie. There's one that was sponsored by the Brussels government, by the cabinet of Bianca de Baets, and that's now on its way to the Congo, to Kinshasa. So I hope it'll arrive on time for the inauguration in Kinshasa, also by the governor of Kinshasa. And the Minister de Baets will be there as well, the State Secretary. And 6th of July, that's going to happen. So if you want to follow us, hearing about that story, please follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you so much.